Welcome to the Rabbi Shmuel Show. I'm Rabbi Shmuel Herzfeld, and we're here today with Dr. Renee Garfinkle. And Dr. Garfinkle is a distinguished psychologist, also a distinguished radio personality as well. And Dr. Garfinkle has recently published a very, very provocative article about authoritarianism. Did I say that right? Authoritarianism, excuse me. It got
It's easier to recognize than to say.
Terrific. Yeah. Authoritarianism in the organized Orthodox rabbinate. What do you mean by this title? And people, where can they get that essay, first of all, on the web?
Well, right now the essay is published on JewishIdeas.org.
Ideas, IDEAS.org.
Yes, that's the website of an organization called Jewish Ideas and Ideals. It's the president is Rabbi Mark Angel.
Okay, so, and if you have a hard time finding it, just email me and I'll put you in touch with Dr. Garfinkle. So what's the thesis, the main point of this article that you wrote?
Well, as you know, Judaism is a religion that takes the issue of authority very, very seriously. God is the moral authority because he was and is the creator.
You said he, it could be she.
Or she.
Okay.
I should say God each time.
Okay,
You're
fine.
absolutely right.
Thank you.
And it is from that moral authority that we get revelation and the direction of the entire Jewish enterprise. So we're very positive toward the idea of authority. But authority is a slippery slope. It actually means, as you perhaps know, it comes from the same root word as the words of author or augment. The notion of authority is a power that encourages growth in the other person.
Okay, so what? So
that's what authority should be.
Okay.
Authoritarianism is not about growth and generativity like authority. It's actually about the use of power for the person in authority.
So you're going to argue in this article, which I've read, you're arguing that there should be authority coming from the rabbinate, but the Orthodox rabbinate, as an organized entity, specifically, you challenge and criticize the Rabbinical Council of America, has become, I'm just inviting in our next guest, that's okay, has become, you're arguing, too authoritarian in their behavior.
Yes, and to be fair, it's not just the Rabbinical Council of America, it's all of the organizations, rabbinic organizations within the wider Orthodox movement. So
well, can we
it's
be clear
from the
about something?
RCA through the Haredi.
Can we be clear about something? Are you criticizing me personally?
No.
Okay, we just had to get that out of the way.
Not at all.
Now we can address some of your critiques of this community, which is actually a very serious critique. I did not mean to make light of it. But where do you see evidence that they are acting in an authoritarian fashion?
Well, I think you have to back up a little. When I and my colleague Hannah Rothstein, who co-authored the article, looked at the issue of authority and authoritarianism within the Orthodox community in particular, we looked at it from a professional point of view. She's an organizational psychologist up at City University of New York at Bernard Baruch, and I'm a clinical psychologist, so we thought the two ways of looking at it through the lens of our disciplines would be useful. And the tendency of organizations to become authoritarian is a dynamic of power. It's not exclusive to the Orthodox rabbinate.
Yeah, but what's an example of how they've become authoritarian, in your opinion?
Well, if you try to disagree, and as a rabbi, I'm sure you've encountered this within the mainstream Orthodox community. If you have a different point of view on whatever the issue is that's discussed, instead of listening to your point of view with respect, acknowledging it, considering it, and perhaps following it or not, what happens is the person with the point of view, the deviant point of view, is ostracized, stigmatized, and basically minimized out of the group.
Well, I'm sure in your work you cite evidence for this. I'm not sure that I agree with you. I'm not sure that I disagree with you. I know that many tremendously great holy tzaddikim in the Rabbinical Council of America, but in every organization, there perhaps as an organization, it's working like that. I can only share from my experience that when I publish an article in the New York Times about the events going on in Iowa with a company called Agriprocessors,
Mm-hmm.
and I pointed out that there was something wrong going on here, and later on federal prosecutors arrested the man and convicted him. I was severely criticized by the professional head of
Mm-hmm.
the Rabbinical Council of America, and he criticized me to the entire rabbinic body on their email list. But I don't feel that I was stigmatized or ostracized, or maybe I'm too naive to notice it. I feel like I'm still a member there in good standing. He disagreed with me. That's his right.
Mm-hmm.
There were no sanctions against me. It was a disagreement.
Oh, didn't anybody question your loyalty to the group?
Um,
Question your wisdom and judgment?
People questioned it, but I was not sanctioned.
Well, you weren't sanctioned. Well,
Yeah.
but that's really a good point. And
I'm fine. I mean, there was. I don't feel like there was any heavy-handed tactics. There was criticism, but on the other hand, I criticized them, or not them specifically. I criticized something that they were involved with. So it works both ways. If you're going to criticize, you have to be willing to get criticized.
if they only criticized your actions
Right.
objectively, they say, I disagree with you. I
Yeah.
think you were wrong. You shouldn't have done that. That's fine. That's not authoritarian. It's when they say, what you did is disloyal to the group.
Right.
That is where you start getting to separating the individual who has a
By saying somebody is disloyal, then
you are separating them. You're moving them away from the group. You're using.
Let's move this beyond that specific example, because if we talk about a specific example, it will always complicate the matter.
Yes,
so you're saying it's okay to criticize, but it's not okay to say a person who disagrees with you is disloyal.
Yes, and let me go back to something you mentioned about how fine a group of people there are in the RCA and the other. There are
tremendously good people.
Yes. What we're talking about is the dynamics of the group. You can have good people who, when they come together because a group, an organization functions in a certain way, take, for example, groupthink. That's a phenomenon that's been looked at in a lot of places and certainly takes place in every rabbinical and actually leadership organization.
Right.
And that is, you have a relatively small group of people, and they care a lot to stay together. Right. They don't want big conflicts. They don't want open fights. They don't take campaign to the streets.
Right.
So the desire to have consensus pushes everyone to sort of agree with each other, to find themselves repeating one another's viewpoints.
Otherwise, you might be considered disloyal.
Disloyal, threatening, going over to the other side.
I want to focus in on something. We're going to have to do this in our second clip, but I want to focus in on specifically on the rabbah issue, on how you see this as an example. But first, I want to just say for the record, I've always had a problem with authority as well, not just with authoritarianism. When I was a student, I was not known for my love for authority, and I felt like there was something wrong with the way authority can be very heavy-handed, even without authoritarianism. And it was always a turnoff to me. And that's something, take away whichever organization, I think we have to allow for people to grow on their own. And there has to be this independent autonomy within, and that's what's one of the things that's so beautiful and attractive about Judaism is the decentralization of authority throughout our history. We'll be back in a moment with Dr. Renee Garfinkle.